All right, so we are diving deep into this white paper today, all about measuring innovation success.
Yeah,
Not just coming up with cool ideas, but like actually figuring out, are they making a difference? Are they worth it?
exactly.
We hear innovation everywhere you turn, but this paper gives us a framework to actually track and measure it.
Yeah, it's like having a compass for your creative journey.
I like that.
So you're not just wandering around hoping for the best. You're actually making sure your efforts are leading to tangible results.
I am all about results. So the paper starts by tackling a question I actually had myself.
Hmm.
Why even measure innovation in the first place? I always thought creativity was supposed to be this, free-flowing thing.
Yeah, you'd think so, right?
Mm-hmm.
But measuring innovation actually gives you more freedom in the long run because you can track your progress,
Oh, interesting.
prove the value of your work, and even secure more resources to keep innovating.
Okay, so it's not about stifling creativity. It's more like giving it direction and purpose.
Exactly. And to do that, the paper breaks down innovation metrics into three main types: input, process, and output.
Okay.
Kind of like building a house.
Yeah.
You need the right materials. That's your input.
Okay.
A solid construction process.
Got it.
And then, of course, a finished product that meets your needs. That's your output.
I like that analogy. So let's start with the foundation.
Okay.
Input metrics. What are we talking about here?
So these metrics tell us what we're putting into innovation. Like, what are we working with? One crucial input metric is idea volume.
Mm.
It's not just about the number of ideas. It's also about where they're coming from.
Oh, cool.
Like, are they coming from all levels of your organization or just the top? If it's just the top, you might be missing out on valuable insights from the people who are actually doing the work.
That's a great point. And the paper gives a really interesting example. They talk about IdeaScale,
Yeah?
this platform that came from a White House initiative.
Right.
And they got like 90,000 ideas from government employees.
Yeah. It's a great example of how tapping into diverse perspectives can really, lead to a wealth of ideas.
Totally. But it's not just about quantity, though, right? It's about nurturing the best ideas.
Right. And that takes time.
Which brings us to another input metric: time spent on innovation.
Yes.
It's so easy to say innovation is a priority, but are you really dedicating the time and resources?
This is where it gets a little tricky, because you have this tension between focusing on immediate needs
Yeah.
versus investing in those groundbreaking but riskier innovations. The paper calls it the innovator's dilemma.
Oh, I like that it's like choosing between putting out fires and building a fireproof house, right?
Exactly. Both are important,
Yeah.
but require different approaches, and the challenge is finding that balance.
Yeah.
The paper highlights how successful organizations actually carve out dedicated time for experimentation and bold ideas, even if the payoff isn't immediate. They recognize that short-term wins are important,
Right.
but so is investing in the future.
It's all about balance. Having that vision and then making sure your resources are lined up with it.
Right. You need to fuel both the day-to-day operations
Yeah,
and these potentially game-changing innovations.
absolutely. So, okay, we've got these innovative ideas brewing. Now what? How do we move them forward?
And that brings us to process metrics.
Okay, let's dive into that. What are we looking at here?
Think of this as the assembly line of innovation.
Okay.
So how smoothly are things moving from idea to implementation? A crucial metric here is what's called the idea conversion rate. You might have tons of ideas, but how many actually make it into reality?
Right. It's not enough to just brainstorm. You need a process to vet those ideas, develop them, implement the most promising ones.
Exactly.
And the paper actually highlighted a really cool example. They talked about the city of Mississauga's transit system and their awesome conversion rate using IdeaScale.
Yeah, they've really created a culture where everyone can contribute ideas, from employees to riders, and then they have a well-defined process to make sure those best ideas are chosen and actually put into action.
That's a great example of how process metrics can show you if you're really, nurturing that innovation pipeline.
Exactly.
But even with the best process, timing is super important, right?
Yes.
How long does it take to go from that initial spark to something real?
You're talking about cycle time, another key process metric. And you can think about it like cooking a meal.
Okay.
How long does it take to go from raw ingredients to a delicious dish? You need to balance speed and quality.
Right.
And the paper suggests an ideal cycle time is often between 3 and 6 months.
Interesting. So not too fast, not too slow, just
Ideal.
factory. But hold on, though, because innovation isn't usually a solo sport, right? It's a team effort.
Yeah.
So how do we measure that? How do we measure collaboration?
You're talking about collaboration as a process metric.
Mm-hmm.
Are all voices being heard? Are teams working together effectively? You can measure this by looking at participation in brainstorming sessions or even using specialized collaboration software.
So it's really about fostering that environment where everyone feels like they can contribute and collaborate.
Exactly, making innovation a team sport.
Yes. But ultimately, it all boils down to, are you seeing results?
Right.
And that takes us to output metrics,
That's right.
which we will dive into after a quick break, so don't go anywhere.
We're back and ready to tackle those output metrics. The ones that tell us if our innovation efforts are actually paying off.
Okay, yeah, let's get to the good stuff. We've talked about inputs, processes, but now it's like, are we actually seeing results? Are these brilliant ideas translating into real value?
That's the question, isn't it? And, for any organization, especially in the public sector, demonstrating value is crucial. Even if profit isn't the primary goal, there's still that responsibility to make the most of resources and, for taxpayers.
Right. Every dollar saved is a dollar that can be reinvested back into those essential services.
Exactly. And speaking of saving money, the white paper had a pretty impressive example from the city of Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, they saved something like $7.1 million a year.
Yeah, $7.1 million annually, just through employee-submitted ideas.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
What were some of those ideas?
Well, a lot of them focused on streamlining processes, which is something so many organizations struggle with. Like, one idea involves simplifying those business license applications.
Oh, okay.
Not only did this save the city money, it also made life easier for local businesses.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's not just about cutting costs. It's about improving services and having that positive ripple effect.
Exactly.
But how do we measure those broader benefits? The ones that go beyond just dollars and cents?
That's where we look at stakeholder satisfaction. Are the people you serve actually happy with the changes? Are you meeting their needs? You can gauge this through surveys, focus groups, direct feedback. It's about making sure those innovative solutions are actually resonating with the people they're intended for.
It's about making sure those innovations actually matter to the people they are meant to serve. But you know what I'm also curious about is we've been talking about individual innovations.
Right.
But what about the overall picture? Like, how do we know if our entire innovation ecosystem is healthy?
That's a great point. And it brings us to a broader perspective on measuring innovation success.
Okay.
We need to zoom out and assess our entire innovation portfolio. Are we striking a balance between those incremental improvements that optimize existing processes and those bolder, more radical innovations that could disrupt and transform?
So it's about having a mix of those smaller wins and those potentially game-changing breakthroughs.
Exactly. But how do we measure those radical innovations, those that are venturing into uncharted territory?
Yeah, that's a good question because traditional metrics might not be enough.
You're absolutely right. With radical innovation, it's about understanding that long-term vision, the potential disruption, the ripple effect it might create. We need metrics that measure progress towards those broader goals and assess the impact on the entire ecosystem.
So we need to be comfortable with a bit of ambiguity, embrace the learning process as we go.
Exactly. It's not always about having all the answers up front, but being open to discovery and adaptation.
And being okay with things not going perfectly right away.
Absolutely. And this brings us back to that iterative mindset the paper talked about.
Oh, right.
It's about testing, learning, adapting along the way.
Not being afraid to fail.
Exactly. Viewing setbacks as learning opportunities.
And creating a culture that encourages that,
Yes, a culture of experimentation.
Yeah.
Where failure is seen as part of the process.
But, as we go further into this innovation landscape, there's another really crucial aspect that I think we need to consider.
Now, what's that?
It's the ethical side of innovation. Like, how do we make sure that our efforts aren't just effective, but also responsible?
That's a critical point, and it's something we'll delve into right after this.
All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into measuring innovation success. We've talked about the metrics, the processes, and even touched on the ethical considerations.
Yeah, it's been a pretty comprehensive look at how to ensure your innovation efforts are not just exciting, but also impactful and responsible.
Exactly. And now I think the big question is, how do leaders actually empower their teams to, navigate all of this and make sure innovation is happening in a way that aligns with their values?
Well, I think it all starts with fostering a culture of open communication and collaboration. Leaders need to create an environment where people feel comfortable sharing ideas, raising concerns, challenging the status quo.
So it's about moving away from that traditional top-down approach and making it more inclusive and participatory.
Exactly. It's about empowering teams to take ownership of the innovation process, giving them the resources, the training, the support they need to experiment, learn, and iterate.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we ensure that all of these efforts are aligned with, the organization's core values?
That's where clear communication and ethical frameworks come in. Leaders need to articulate the organization's values and how they relate to innovation, have those open discussions about potential ethical dilemmas, and establish guidelines for responsible innovation.
So it's not just about saying go innovate, it's about providing that guidance and those boundaries to make sure innovation is pursued in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. And it's about empowering teams to think about the impact of their innovations on all stakeholders, not just the bottom line.
Hmm.
You know, encouraging them to ask those tough questions, challenge assumptions, and really think about the long-term consequences.
That brings us back to that thought-provoking question you asked earlier. What's the next big world-changing innovation you'd like to see happen in your lifetime?
Oh, yeah. And it ties directly into what we've been talking about. When we think about those transformative innovations, the ones that make a real difference, they often come from a deep desire to solve a problem or address a societal need.
So it's not about creating the next cool gadget, it's about using innovation to make a positive impact.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for leaders to foster that sense of purpose-driven innovation.
Hmm.
They connect those efforts to the organization's mission and values, empower teams to work on things they're passionate about.
Because when people are passionate about what they're doing, that's when the real magic happens, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's when we see those groundbreaking innovations emerge, the ones that not only solve problems, but also inspire and uplift humanity.
This has been such an incredible conversation. We've covered so much ground, from those very specific metrics to the much broader ideas about responsibility and the role of leadership.
And I think the key takeaway is that innovation is not just about coming up with ideas. It's about fostering that mindset, that culture, that system that empowers people to create positive change.
It's about embracing that iterative process, learning from our experiences, and always striving to do better, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to encourage our listeners to think about the role innovation plays in their own lives and work. What are you passionate about? What impact do you want to make?
Because innovation isn't just for big companies or research labs, it's something we can all embrace in our own way. It's about that spark of creativity, that willingness to challenge the status quo, and that belief that we can make a difference.
And remember, measuring innovation isn't just about tracking numbers. It's about understanding the impact of our efforts and using that to guide our journey toward a better future.
So well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into measuring innovation's success. Until next time, keep those innovative minds buzzing.